Okay. Whoops. Music stop. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Jeff here. I'm a board certified doctor of holistic health. I am streaming live from my home practice, my homestead practice here in northern Minnesota. I am not a medical doctor. I do not practice medicine. I don't pretend to practice medicine. I do not treat, cure, or diagnose. I simply help people get their health back through natural means, through supplementation, coaching, health coaching, lifestyle coaching, mentoring, teaching, educating, and guiding, and teaching people how to eat again. There's so many different things that go on here to help a person get their health back. And we're going to talk a little bit about that focus for today's show. But first, happy Valentine's Day to everybody, especially my girlfriend in Indiana, Christine. Love you to death. Happy Valentine's Day. Um, and for everybody out there who celebrates Valentine's Day, I I'm not one that gets caught up in the whole marketing aspect of what goes on Valentine's Day, because I think that you should have that same amount of love and passion that seems to fire up on this marketing holiday. You should have that same passion and love and fire for your partner, your spouse, your wife, husband, every day of the year, not just on February 14th. Every day, every day. So that's my 2 cents about that. Uh, the weather here on the homestead yesterday, it reached, I think it, at where I'm at, I think it did reach 55 degrees. That is incredible for February. Come on, February. And today it's supposed to be like in the upper 40s, maybe 44, I think I heard. And then it'll start getting cold again, as winters tend to do. I like how it just kind of comes in, teases you a little bit. Hey, it's warm. I took advantage of the warm day yesterday and started my spring cleaning early. I opened up the screen doors. I had a couple windows open I cleaned the whole common areas of my house yesterday. Put stuff away that should have been put away, like last fall, all that kind of stuff. But got a good cleaning done, some good fresh air, and that is good for my health and the health of my animals, my dog and cat. Speaking of my animals, I have 13 chickens, and I let them out yesterday, and they got to go free range. They don't usually like to go around in the snow, but I saw them out and about a little bit yesterday. And then last night, when I went to go put them down, I close up the chicken coop at night. I was down one. I had lost a chicken. She didn't come home. And so I looked around for a while with the flashlight. I couldn't find her, and said, well, either she's roosted up somewhere for the night or something got her. And so I happened to be inside. I was talking to Christine, and Louie was outside, and I was sitting in a spot that I could see out the window. And Louie went into an area outside over by the shop that I rarely ever see him go into. And so I think he sniffed her out. And so I got the flashlight and went back out there. And sure enough, he found her. She had taken refuge under the steps going up to the shop, part of the shop. So I was able to pick her up and bring her back to safety for the coop. So it's that kind of stuff that reminds me of how fun it is to be out here, in the woods, northern Minnesota, living just living with everything around you. And I feel really blessed to be there. Feel blessed to have a girlfriend, and be in relationship there. I'm surrounded with blessings, and so Anyway, we're going to talk about this topic. I see this come up a lot. I've been working with people for, almost 17 years on getting their health back. Um, I believe I have a pretty good success rate working with people. Not everybody. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everybody got, their miraculous recoveries and all that kind of stuff. But a majority has. I would say probably I have a pretty good high success rate with my clients in getting their health back. And for those that don't, I take a step back and I look. It's like, okay, what did I do that might have gotten in their way and all that? And then I'm forced to reflect on my own health journey on why did it take me so long back when I was in. This was all before my holistic journey. Why did it take me so long to get my health back? Why did I allow myself to go through the system and let them cut me open and take parts out of me? And with the surgeries that I endured, um, what got in my way? Okay, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit because I believe the real solution comes about when I finally was in a position where I had this awareness. I have to take leadership of my own health. Okay, because nobody is going to come out of the woodwork and hit you on the forehead and say you're healed. I finally had this epiphany that to get my health back, I would have to be the one to do it. Okay, and and that's not always easy, folks. So I wanted to talk about that. There's so many dynamics that go into it. Um, so let's get started. Grab your coffee. Let's dive in. Some of the stuff you might not want to hear, but it needs to be said, especially if you were sitting on the fence of I don't know what to do next. Okay, maybe you'll get something out of it for that. So as I said today, I want to talk about something that may make some people uncomfortable. Okay, not because it's controversial and not because it's political, but because it requires honesty. We're going to talk about leadership. Okay, not leadership in business, not leadership in the military, not leadership in your home. We're going to talk about leadership in your own body. And I've been doing this work for a long time. I've worked with people who have been to 5 doctors, 10 doctors, people who have stacks of lab reports, drawers full of supplements and medications, a history of procedures, a list of diagnoses that reads like a novel. And that was my health record years and years ago. But here's what I've learned, okay? Most people don't actually have a health information problem. They have a leadership problem. Bear with me, hang with me. I'll explain this to you. And as I get into it, I'm gonna open the comments. If you happen to be watching, please chime in on the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Okay. So we have a leadership problem. We have been trained, seriously, folks, we have been trained from childhood to hand our health over to someone else. Okay. You don't feel good? Go see someone. Something hurts? Take something. Your numbers are off? Suppress it. We have been conditioned to believe that someone outside of us carries the authority over our own physiology. And here's the truth, okay? Emergency medicine is incredible. If you're bleeding out, you don't need a smoothie and a meditation session. You need a trauma team. But chronic illness, chronic fatigue, autoimmune issues, parasites, Lyme, metabolic dysfunction, hormonal chaos, Those don't resolve because someone else is in charge. They resolve when you decide to lead. And here's what leadership in your health means: you stop waiting to be rescued, you stop looking for the magic pill, you stop blaming genetics, age, stress, your job, your spouse, the food system, or the government. And you start asking a better question: what role am I playing in the current state of my health? Okay, that's not shame, that's power. Because if you played a role in getting here, you can play a role in getting out. So I see two types of people in my office. The first type comes in and says, "Fix me." The second type comes in and says, "I'm ready to do the work." And folks, those are the people that I work with. Same protocols, same access, same tools, different outcomes. Why? Because leadership. The body responds to consistency. The body responds to discipline. The body responds to alignment. It does not respond to panic. It does not respond to inconsistency. And it does not respond to dabbling. You cannot dabble your way out of chronic dysfunction. You have to decide: am I going to lead this body, or am I going to continue outsourcing it? So today we're going to unpack what it actually means to become the leader in your own healthcare journey, what that looks like, why most people avoid it, and how that decision changes everything. So grab your coffee. This episode matters. This one matters. I'm telling you. And throughout, you'll hear a lot of epiphanies that I've had in my own health journey. This is what a lot of this is stems from. Okay. So we're going to talk first about the outsourcing trap. Let's be honest about something. Most people have been trained to outsource their health. Hey, good morning, Janae from McGregor. Appreciate you chiming in and listening. Most people have been trained to outsource their health from the time they were children. This used to be me. Think about it. As a kid, if you didn't feel well, what happened? You didn't ask, what did I eat? How did I sleep? What changed in my environment? No, you were taken somewhere. Someone else elevated you. Someone else evaluated you. Someone else decided what was wrong. Someone else prescribed what to do. And that pattern never stopped. So we moved from parents to pediatricians to primary care to specialists. And somewhere along the line, we lost the skill of self-observation. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not anti-doctor. I am not anti-testing. I am not anti-medicine. I am anti-passivity. There's a difference. So outsourcing your leadership looks like this. You wait until symptoms are loud. You Google the symptom. Then you self-diagnose. You try a supplement you heard about on a podcast. You stop after 2 weeks because you didn't feel immediate change. Then you move on to the next thing. That's not strategy. That's chasing. And I see it constantly. I chased and chased and chased in my health journey for years. And people will spend thousands of dollars dabbling, but hesitate to commit to a structured plan. Why? Because leadership requires commitment, and commitment requires discomfort. So when someone walks in my office and says, just tell me what to take, that tells me something. They don't actually want leadership. They're not ready. They want relief, which I understand, but relief is temporary. Leadership says, I'm going to track my sleep. I'm going to eliminate sugar even when it's inconvenient. I'm going to follow through on parasite work even when detox symptoms flare. I'm going to finish the program instead of quitting at visit 5 because I feel a little better. You cannot build health on inconsistency. The body doesn't care about good intentions. It responds to patterns. And here's the deeper truth. When you outsource leadership, you also outsource responsibility. If the doctor is in charge, then it's their fault if it doesn't work. If the supplement fails, then it's the product's fault. If the protocol is uncomfortable, then it must be wrong. But when you lead, you ask different questions. Is this discomfort part of mobilization? Is my body clearing something? Did I skip any steps? Did I push too hard? Did I abandon the foundations? That is how leaders think. Leaders gather data, leaders assess patterns, and leaders adjust with intention. And that's why I structure everything around assessment first. I'm not guessing, not random detox, not try this and see. I assess, I sequence, and then we can build the foundations. We remove the interferences. Because leadership without structure becomes chaos. And chaos is exactly how most people ended up sick in the first place. So this is simple. If you want different health, you have to stop outsourcing authority over your body. No one will ever care about your terrain more than you. And until you decide to lead it, something else will. When we talk about the data, I might have shared this last week on the show. Um, Data is used, and if you want more data to help you lead your own health journey, go back and watch last week's show. I talked about biometric wearables, the Oura Ring and the Fitbit and the Garmin watches and all that kind of stuff. The data trackers, there's so many out there to give you 24/7 information about what your body is doing, you know. And so when I studied the data, I was looking at my deep sleep patterns, and I noticed that when I get less than 30 minutes of deep sleep at night, I typically have a, a less than 100% day. Okay. And so then I started to do a little research on what affects deep sleep. And one of the things on the list was overtraining and not giving yourself enough time for recovery. Okay. And so I talked to my fitness trainer and we talked that through and recognized that I was overtraining because I would do strength training in the morning and then I would go for a run in the afternoon. And so I made an adjustment with that information. And instead of the run, I just made sure I'm just making sure I get enough steps. And so he wanted me to walk one day, run another, walk one day. And we tried that. And when I kept below that, when I did the walks, my sleep got better. Okay. So you can use the data, but nobody, until you get the data, you have to figure out what to do with it. And that takes time. You have to learn. But that's leader. I have decided to lead the healthcare for my own body. Okay. So, and believe me, I came into that process kicking and dragging. I did. I won't go into my origin story today. I've talked about that on other shows, but most holistic practitioners have an origin story. Okay, um, and it's usually not pretty. Just like a majority of the clients that I work with, their origin stories are not pretty, and so part of the process, I believe, is I get to help them write a new story, and I get to teach them all about the things we're talking about today and coach them and help get them back in, because when they leave here, now they've got full responsibility for their healthcare back. Okay. And that's one of the things that working with somebody like me will help you do. All right. So now, if you're just joining the show, make sure you let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you have any questions throughout the show, please put those in the comments too, and I will try to answer them. Okay. Um, all right. So the victim loop here, we're going to get into the victim loop versus the leader loop. Okay. Now that we've talked about outsourcing leadership, we need to talk about what replaces it. Because if you stop outsourcing, you have to step into something. And that's where most people get stuck. Okay. There are two loops I see over and over again in clinical practice: the victim loop and the leader loop. So let's start with the victim loop. Okay. A symptom shows up, might be fatigue, joint pain, bloating, brain fog, anxiety, heart palpitations, skin flare ups. Immediately fear kicks in. What is wrong with me? Is this serious? Why does my body keep failing me? Then comes reaction: the Google searches, Facebook groups, Reddit threads, a new supplement order, a medication adjustment, another opinion. There's urgency, there's panic, there's emotion. And because it's emotionally driven, it becomes reactive instead of strategic. So something temporarily suppresses the symptom, or it shifts. And when it shifts, the cycle restarts. That's the victim loop: stimulus, fear, reaction, temporary change, repeat. No long term strategy and no root cause sequencing, no pattern recognition, nothing. You just stay in this loop. I've been in it. It's the woe is me. Woe is me. I'm not getting better. I've been sick for so long. This was my story. I'd been sick for so long, I just started to accept it as this is the way life is going to be. And as I was getting older too, then I pull in the other cards of, well, I'm just getting older, or that's just a sign of old age. And you heard me say this last week. Bullshit. It's not a sign of old age. It's a sign waiting for you to take leadership so you can bust out of that. Okay. And sometimes to take that leadership, it's very wise, and this is what I learned, to work with someone who knows how to navigate people out of that victim loop. Okay. So let's contrast that now with the leader loop. Okay. A symptom shows up. Instead of panic, you pause. Instead of fear, you observe. There's observation. And instead of reacting, you do an assessment. So the three things: pause, observation, assessment. Okay. A leader will ask, when did this start? What changed? What layer are we working on right now? Is this mobilization or new dysfunction? Is this detox or deterioration? Say that word 3 times fast. A leader gathers intelligence before acting. And that's why I structure my programs around the assessment first. We have to do an assessment. And when we use quantum nutrition testing, we are not guessing. When we build foundations in digestion, drainage, blood sugar stability, and sleep, we are not chasing. We are building command structure inside the body. We are deploying functional nutrition to help us do that. Because here's something that most people don't understand: symptoms are not enemies, they are signals. And if you panic at every signal, you will sabotage the healing process. I've watched this happen in parasite work. I've watched it happen in Lyme cases. I've watched it happen in metabolic dysfunction. A client begins mobilizing toxins, energy dips, headaches might increase, emotions fluctuate. If they are in the victim loop, they stop the protocol. If they are in the leader loop, they communicate, they assess, and adjust intelligently. That difference alone determines outcomes. Leadership in health is not about controlling every symptom. It's about understanding the terrain well enough to not be ruled by fear. The body heals in sequence, but fear disrupts that sequence. And when fear drives decisions, people jump from protocol to protocol, medication to medication. They never allow the body to finish what it started. Leaders finish. Leaders tolerate appropriate discomfort. Leaders stay consistent. Leaders adjust with data, not emotion. And here's the empowering truth: you don't need to know everything about physiology to be a leader in your health. You need posture. You need consistency. You need the willingness to stay in process instead of constantly escaping it. The victim loop keeps you busy. The leader loop gets you better. And most people never realize the difference. If you want, this is probably a good time to introduce this. Louis, go lay down. Go lay down. If you would like more information on getting started, I have a webinar coming up next Wednesday. Let me share this. Next Wednesday, right here, why doing all the right things still isn't working, from spinning your wheels to finding a clear path forward. Next Wednesday, I'm going to do a live Zoom class at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay. And what I talk about in there, most people I work with aren't ignoring their health. They've changed their diet, they've tried supplements, they've worked with practitioners, they've genuinely put in the effort, and yet they still feel stuck, low energy, lingering symptoms, no clear direction. That doesn't mean they're failing, it means they're missing a critical step. So on Wednesday, February 18th at 7 p.m. Central Time, I'm hosting a live Zoom class called Why Doing All the Right Things Still Isn't Working. And in that session, I'll walk you through why symptoms tend to cycle instead of resolve, why guessing even with good information slows real progress, how functional nutrition and advanced muscle testing work together, why assessment and sequence matter more than effort, and how my 3-phase approach creates clarity instead of overwhelm. This isn't about doing more. It's about understanding what actually matters first. If you've been doing the work but still don't feel confident about your next step, this session will bring clarity. Okay. So I'm going to copy the link and I'll put it down here in the comments. Hopefully it comes in. Oh, that's a dumb. Didn't copy the link right. Let me try that again. Let's see if that's going to work. Nope. Facebook is trying to put crap in there. So let's just go to the link. And then I'll copy that and put it in the comments. And feel free to share that link with anybody you might know who could benefit from hearing that information. Okay. So I posted that in the comments for you. I'll put it up again later and we'll talk about it. All right. So we talked about the victim loop and the leader loop. Okay. Now I want to move into what does leadership and health actually look like? Okay. So let's make it practical for us. Because leadership sounds strong, it sounds powerful, but what does it actually look like on a Tuesday afternoon when you're tired and life is busy? Well, leadership in your health is not dramatic. Okay. It's not disciplined. It's not loud. It's consistent. It's not about rejecting conventional medicine. It's not. It's about understanding when to use it and when to build something deeper. If you break your arm, we're not going to muscle test your way through that. You go get it set and then come back to me. I always tell my clients, if you break a leg while you're skiing, don't call me. Okay. Go get it taken care of properly. And then come see me because I have nutrients that we can feed your body to help the bones and your body heal maybe better. Okay. But if you've had chronic inflammation for 10 years, bouncing from medication to medication without asking why the inflammation exists in the first place, that's not leadership. That's dependency. Leadership means you understand the difference between crisis care and chronic care. Crisis care saves lives. Chronic care requires strategy. And here's where most people struggle. Leadership means doing the boring things well. It means going to bed when your body needs sleep instead of scrolling on your devices. Stabilizing. It means stabilizing blood sugar instead of riding caffeine and carbs all day. It means drinking water consistently. It means eliminating foods your body clearly reacts to, even when it's socially inconvenient. Finishing a parasite. It means finishing a parasite or detox protocol, even when you hit a rough patch. It means you don't quit just because you feel a flare. You assess it. Is this mobilization? Is this drainage? Is this something new? Leaders don't abandon the mission because it got uncomfortable. They evaluate the terrain and adjust the strategy. I've seen this over and over again. Two clients, same protocol. One says, this is hard, but I'm committed. The other says, I don't like how this feels, I'm stopping. Guess who progresses? The body respects consistency. It does not respond to dabbling. Leadership also means tracking. You can't lead what you refuse to measure. Sleep patterns, energy levels, digestive shifts, mood changes, food reactions. When you track patterns, you stop living in reaction and start living in awareness. This is why I have people do food journals when you're working with me. I want to study the food that you are eating. And that does a couple things. One, it gives me data to use to assess your progress and what's going on in your journey. Okay. But two, it also brings awareness to you. And awareness creates leverage. Another aspect of leadership and health is boundaries. boundaries with food, boundaries with stress, boundaries with people who drain you, boundaries with cultural norms that glorify burnout. I have I can't count the number of hours I have spent over the years teaching people when I hear their stories, because I'll listen to the data and then I reflect it back to them. And I have talked about boundaries countless times. I used to have a problem with boundaries, and it would let other people in my life interfere because I didn't respect their boundaries. And sometimes to solve that boundary issue, it means to cut that person off. Oh, done, done. Your physiology does not care about social pressure, it responds to inputs. And if you constantly override your body because it's inconvenient to listen, you're not leading, you're suppressing. Leadership also means humility. You admit when you've been inconsistent, you admit when you slipped, you admit when you avoided the hard conversations. But instead of spiraling into guilt, you recalibrate. That's leadership. It's not perfection, it's correction. And I don't expect perfection for any of my clients because this is a new process that they're being taught and they're being led through. Okay. I don't expect perfection. I might ask somebody, hey, instead of drinking 2 pops a day or 2 sodas a day next week, how about you go to one? And then during the week, I see on their food journal, they might have had one day where they had three. Okay. And I'll talk to them about it. And they say, yeah, I really beat myself up and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm not expecting perfection. When you misstep like that, I would just invite them, okay, acknowledge it, recognize it, let it go, and move on and go back to your normal program. Don't sit there and wallow and beat yourself up over the fact that you didn't follow the guidelines exactly. Don't wallow in that shit. Take a moment, acknowledge it, and go, oh shit, okay, I'm right back. And in that instant, the next decision is back on the program. And you continue on forward. You don't sit there and go backward. You don't let it spiral you down. You recalibrate. That's leadership. All right. And this is why I don't just hand people supplements and send them out the door. Supplements without leadership become expensive urine. Protocols without posture becomes abandoned plans. Structure matters, sequence matters, accountability matters. But at the end of the day, I cannot lead your body for you. I can assess, I can guide, I can structure, I can adjust. But you have to decide to show up. Leadership in health looks like this. I am no longer waiting. I am no longer dabbling. I am no longer outsourcing responsibility. I am building something. And that decision alone changes outcomes more than any capsule ever will. Okay. So again, I don't create a program and put you into the category set and forget and give it to you and say, I'll see you in a couple months for an update. No. If you're on a program with me, we're going to meet weekly because structure matters. It's a plan. Sequence, it's a plan. And accountability matters. It's a plan. Now we get into some of the hard stuff, the emotional barriers to leadership. Okay. I'm well versed in this because I have experienced multiple emotional barriers, and I still do. I'm not going to admit I'm 100% perfect in that. But let's talk about the part most people don't want to talk about, because leadership in health is not just physical, it's emotional. This is where holistic practitioners come in. We focus on mind, body, spirit. Mind is emotional, body's physical, spirit is ties it all together and connects us to something greater. But this is where many people quietly sabotage themselves. On the surface, people say they want to feel better. They want more energy, they want less pain, they want clarity, they want freedom. But underneath that, there is often fear. Fear of what they might have to face. Fear of what they might have to change. Fear of what they might have to let go of. Because stepping into leadership means confronting patterns. And some of those patterns are comfortable for people, even unhealthy ones. I've watched this for years in my practice. Sometimes the real barrier isn't parasites, it isn't Lyme, it isn't blood sugar instability, it's avoidance. It's avoidance of changing the diet, reducing alcohol, ending draining relationships, leaving a toxic job, setting boundaries with family, addressing unresolved emotional stress. Your body keeps the score. And when stress becomes chronic, the physiology adapts to survive. Sympathetic dominance. That's where your fight or flight is always on. You might have adrenal strain, digestive suppression, inflammation. The body does not lie. And so leadership requires you to ask a harder question. What in my life is keeping my nervous system in survival mode? Holy hell, folks, I'm telling you, that can be a challenge to walk through that. But you have to do it. You have to look at this stuff. At that point, it's not a supplement question, it's a courage question. There are people who would rather chase labs for 10 years than admit they're living in constant resentment. There are people who will try every detox protocol available before acknowledging they never rest. There are people who will clear parasites but refuse to clear bitterness. And the body feels all of it. Okay? So hear me clearly. This is not blame. This is empowerment. Because the moment you acknowledge your emotional patterns, you gain leverage. When someone decides, I will no longer live in chronic stress, or I will no longer say yes to everything, I will no longer suppress how I feel, or I will no longer numb with food or distraction. Their physiology begins to shift. The nervous system settles. Digestion improves. Sleep deepens. Inflammation reduces. Leadership in health requires emotional maturity. It requires self awareness. It requires the willingness to look in the mirror and say, what part of this pattern is mine? That's not comfortable, but it is powerful. And this is why discipline matters more than motivation. I did some posts earlier in the week on my profile, my Facebook profile. Motivation is emotional, discipline is structural, and leadership is built on structure. So, structure in sleep, structure in food, structure in detox, structure in thought patterns. And when those structures align, the body finally feels safe enough to heal. Because here's the truth most people never hear: the body heals best in safety, not in chaos, not in fear, not in self judgment. Leadership creates safety. When you become the calm authority in your own life, your physiology responds. And this is the deeper layer. Health is not just about removing pathogens, it's about removing internal chaos. And that requires courage. So, why why do some people get better and others don't? Okay? This is the part that can be hard to hear. Okay, but it's true. After all these years in practice, I can tell you something with clarity. The difference between the people who truly transform and the people who stall is rarely the protocol, it's posture. I've run the same structured systems for years. Okay? Assessments, sequence, foundations, remove interferences, support drainage, build resilience. The tools are consistent, but outcomes vary. Why? Because healing is not just biochemical, it's behavioral. The clients who get better decide something internally before the lab numbers ever change. They decide, I am not going back. Not back to sugar dependence, not back to 5 hours of sleep, not back to chronic stress patterns, not back to quitting when it gets uncomfortable. They draw a line. And once that line is drawn, compliance changes, consistency increases, and follow through strengthens, and the body responds. So now contrast that with someone who is still negotiating. I'll do this, but only if I feel better in 2 weeks. I'll eliminate this food except on weekends. I'll take the supplements when I remember. That posture keeps one foot in and one foot out. Healing does not respond to half commitments. The body needs stability: stability in blood sugar, stability in sleep, stability in nervous system tone, stability in follow through. When you are constantly starting and stopping, the body never finishes what it began. And this is why leadership matters so much, because when somebody truly steps into leadership, something shifts energetically. They stop looking for the next thing. They stop chasing, they stop blaming, and they begin asking, what is required of me right now? That is a leader's question. And here's something that may surprise people: the clients who get the best results are not always the smartest. Okay, they're not always the wealthiest. They're not always the ones with the least complicated cases. They are the most consistent. And consistency beats complexity every time. The body does not heal because you understand every biochemical pathway. It heals because you created a stable environment long enough for it to recalibrate. That requires leadership. It requires staying the course when detox symptoms flare. It requires finishing parasite protocols. It requires completing drainage support before jumping ahead. It requires trusting sequence instead of chasing urgency. And when someone fully decides to lead their health journey, their questions change. Their mindset changes. Their habits change, and their results change. I can guide, I can assess, I can structure, but I cannot decide for someone to lead. That decision belongs to them. And when they make it, everything begins to move. So, why is my program built for leaders? Now, everything we just talked about leads here. Because if leadership in your health is the difference maker, then the next question is, what does structure for leadership actually look like? And this is exactly why I do not run a supplement shop. This is why I do not sell random detox kits. This is why I don't say, try this and let me know. That model feels like dabbling, and dabbling keeps people stuck. What I built is structured for leadership. When someone starts with me, we don't guess, we assess. We use quantum nutrition testing to determine priorities. We look at interference patterns. We look at organ stress. We look at drainage pathways. We look at what the body is actually ready to handle. Because leadership without assessment becomes ego. And ego driven health decisions usually backfire. Then we build foundations with functional nutrition, blood sugar stabilization, digestive support, sleep rhythm, stress regulation, drainage before detox. Sequence matters. You don't remodel a house by knocking out load bearing walls first. You stabilize the structure. That's leadership. And then there's accountability. This is the piece most people underestimate. Left alone, most people revert. They get busy, they get distracted, they get uncomfortable. Having structured visits, having progress checkpoints, having someone evaluating the terrain with you, that's not dependency. That's a strategic partnership. Leadership does not mean doing everything alone. It means taking ownership while being guided with intelligence. Sometimes I joke, I say, instead of using your brain, we're going to use my brain for a while. Okay? That's the difference. My programs are not about chasing symptoms, they're about building command structure in your physiology. And when someone steps into that structure with the posture of a leader instead of a victim, that's when chronic patterns begin to unwind. Not overnight, but sustainably. Because I'm not trying to give you relief. I'm trying to help you build resilience. Relief fades, but resilience lasts. And resilience only develops under leadership. So if you're listening to this and something is resonating, if you're tired of guessing, if you're tired of bouncing from thing to thing, if you're tired of feeling like your health is running you instead of the other way around, then the next step isn't another supplement. It's assessment, it's structure, it's sequence. It's deciding that you're done outsourcing leadership over your own body. And that's exactly what my program is designed to support. So, if you've been listening today and you recognize yourself in this conversation, this is your moment. You can stay in the loop or you can step into leadership. If you're ready to stop guessing, if you're ready to stop chasing symptoms, if you're ready to stop starting and stopping protocols, then it's time to assess. Not experiment, not dabble, assess. The quantum nutrition testing full assessment is where leadership begins. We identify what's stressing the body, what systems are overloaded, what needs to be supported first, what sequence actually makes sense. You walk away with clarity, not hype, not hope, clarity. And clarity is power. Because once you know what you're dealing with, you can move forward with intention instead of fear. So here's the challenge. If you're serious about leading your health instead of outsourcing, schedule your full assessment. Draw the line. Decide that you're done reacting. Decide that you're done waiting. Leadership doesn't start next month. It doesn't start when life slows down. It doesn't start when you feel more motivated. It starts when you commit. If that's you, book the assessment. Let's build the structure. To schedule, to schedule, go to my website, evensonholistic.com. Okay. And right here, right in the middle of the screen, you can't miss this button. Click that button and get on my calendar. Okay. But notice up here on the top, for a limited time, new client invitation for $199. Use code READY199. Your body has been waiting for you to take the lead. All right. I'll put my website in the comments so you can go right to it. Start your journey. Start your journey. Okay. Please get on the calendar, start your journey. So here's what I want you to remember. Your body is not your enemy. Okay. It's not broken. It's not betraying you. It's not randomly malfunctioning. It is responding. It's responding to inputs. It's responding to stress, responding to patterns, responding to leadership. And if the results right now are not what you want, that's not a sentence. It's feedback. Feedback that something needs to shift. But that shift doesn't begin with another pill. It doesn't begin with another diagnosis. It doesn't begin with another opinion. It begins with a decision to lead, to observe instead of panic, to assess instead of react, to stay consistent instead of dabble, to finish what you start. Health is not built in bursts of a motivation. It's built in daily acts of leadership. And the beautiful thing is this: the moment you decide to lead, you reclaim power. You stop being at the mercy of symptoms. You stop being tossed around by fear. You stop waiting for someone else to fix what you are fully capable of influencing. You may not control every variable, but you absolutely control your posture. And posture changes outcomes. So as you go into this week, I want you to ask yourself one simple question: am I leading my health, or am I reacting to it? That awareness alone can change everything. Okay? Lead well, take ownership, build resilience. Let's see here. All right. Let me close here with a prayer. Let me stop the screen share. Stop. There we go. All right. Please join me in this prayer. Father God, we thank you for the gift of this body, not as something to control in pride, and not as something to resent in frustration, but as something you designed with wisdom and purpose. Help us to become better stewards of what you've entrusted to us. Give us clarity where there has been confusion. Give us courage where there has been avoidance. Give us discipline where there has been inconsistency. Teach us to listen to our bodies without fear. Teach us to respond with wisdom instead of panic. Teach us to lead our health with responsibility instead of outsourcing it to the noise around us. If there are areas of our lives keeping us in stress, reveal them gently. If there are habits harming us, give us strength to change them. If there is discouragement, Replace it with perseverance. Remind us that healing is often a process, not a moment, and that growth requires patience. Help us build rhythms of rest, nourishment, and balance that honor you. And for those who feel overwhelmed right now, bring peace to their nervous system, bring steadiness to their thoughts, bring hope where there has been frustration. We ask for wisdom in our decisions, humility in our learning, and strength to lead well. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. This is Morning Coffee with Doc Jeff. I will see you next week.